Fate or pain human life is a long journey where every encounter contains deep stories and meanings. There are people who come to us in just a short period of time, but the mark they leave lasts forever. So are those relationships fate or just pain? All meetings in the world are arranged by God. It can be a gift, but it can also be a lesson. No matter what it is, it all helps you improve and mature. So you only carefully appreciate the present. Cherish every meeting. Those who come will calmly accept it. Those who leave will happily let go. The person who loves you gives you warmth and courage. The courage to face difficulties in life. The person you love will make you learn what it means to love and cherish, to appreciate what you have. The person you don't like teaches you to be tolerant and know how to respect and forgive others and yourself. People who don't like you will help you grow, make you cautious, and reconsider yourself. Only when you have fate can you meet. Only when you have debt can you love. Is fate really determined by heaven, or is it all created by humans? When full of love, people often say, have fate, to find opportunities to be close. When people have run out of love, they say out of love, as an excuse to end their love. You are just a passerby in someone else's life. You can only go with someone else for only a part of your life. That is the finiteness that you give to others. So how can you expect others to give infinity? 1. Fate. Debt, mount timeless emotions are strange things. Obviously, everyone runs away, but still can't leave. Until all bigotry begins more with sadness in the middle of happy days. In fact, meeting each other is truly heavenly fate. Whether happy or sad, compatible or dissipated, near or far, walking or staying, holding or letting go, raising or putting down, accepting or rejecting. Is it all due to worldly concentration? All lie in the human heart. Emotions. Strange things that no one can escape. Emotions are one of the strangest and most complex human things. We try to run away from negative emotions, but are eventually caught up by them, as if there is an invisible force holding us tight. When joy fleets, sadness creeps between the gaps of happiness, making bigotry and pain even deeper. We often want to dispel sadness, avoid hurt, and keep joy forever. However, life does not always follow your wishes. Emotions, whether joy or sadness, are inseparable parts of the journey of life. When we try to deny an emotion, we unintentionally create a distance from ourselves. Moments of stubbornly holding on to happiness only make sadness clearer, because we gradually realize that happiness cannot last forever. At some point, when emotional bigotry becomes more intense, we are caught up in a spiral of internal conflicts. Sadness, insecurity, and feelings of incompleteness gradually creep into life, interspersed with brief moments of happiness. Negative emotions are no longer just a small part of being ignored, but they become the center, where all efforts to dispel are in vain. Emotions are things that are not easy to control, not easy to run away from. The only way to avoid being overwhelmed by them is to learn to accept and understand that emotions come and go, like a natural flow of life. We may feel weak when faced with sadness, but from there, we learn to be more steadfast in our journey of growth. According to Asian beliefs, fate is considered a connection from past lives, something that cannot be explained by reason. When two people meet, whether in love, friends, or even confrontation, they all have a greater meaning than what the eye sees. Fate comes, fate goes, are all natural. People who meet in life may have had an invisible bond from a previous life. That's why, even though it was just a fleeting meeting, it brought with it a familiar feeling, like it had been together for a long time. For many people, debt brings happiness, the meeting of two like-minded souls. They enter each other's lives as complete pieces, filling in gaps they cannot fill on their own. 2. Pain. When love turns into wounds, people meet each other through fate, love each other through debt, and separation through fate, Buddha taught. Is fate, no matter how far away you are, you will meet again. Even if you have debt, you will not be able to escape. The larger the word love, the more afraid it will hurt in the future. Yet I don't know how many times I stubbornly ignored everything and walked towards each other. Love, in its sublime moment, brings boundless happiness, but when it cracks, it leaves deep wounds. Each wound is an indelible mark. The darker it is, the greater the fear. Fear that past pain will repeat itself in the future. Yet, countless times, we still stubbornly step towards each other, ignoring fear and ignoring pain. The word love has such weight that it is difficult for anyone to bear it when it turns into pain. Every time you enter love, you bet on your own emotions, even though you have experienced deep hurt. We are afraid, but we still look forward, long to be loved, long for moments with the person we love. That's why, even though it's painful, even though the wound hasn't healed yet, we still rush into new relationships, hoping this time things will be different. However, love is also full of paradoxes. It is that bigotry. It is ignoring fear and engaging in relationships that sometimes creates a spiral of pain. Every time love is broken, new wounds pile up on old wounds, causing the heart to gradually become weaker and more fragile. But is it because of pain that we don't dare to love? Perhaps love and pain always go hand in hand. Pain is not something to run away from, but something to accept. Even though we know that the deeper the wound, the greater the fear, there is still an invisible force that urges us to step towards each other, regardless of what happens. However, not all relationships end happily. There are encounters that, instead of bringing joy, are filled with pain. These can be toxic relationships where love is stifled by selfishness, control, and even deception. Instead of growing together, they hurt each other, leaving wounds that are difficult to heal. Those pains are sometimes not anyone's fault, but they simply came together at the wrong time. While one is ready for attachment, the other is still struggling with his or her own life. As a result, that love cannot exist, and what remains is only regret. 3. Lessons from debt and pain. If it's du yin, then no matter how far away you are, you will find your way back. If it's debt, then no matter how much you hide, you can't escape. And when it's fate, it's simple. It can't be resisted. Whether predestined or painful, every relationship leaves valuable lessons. Pain is not necessarily a negative thing because, from our trauma, we learn to grow, learn to love ourselves and others more properly. Failed relationships help us realize the value of sacrifice, tolerance, and letting go when there is no longer a common path. No matter how much of life is just a road we can meet each other, please cherish it. 10 years, 20 years, or 100 years of a person's life is just a stretch of road. We can only have the opportunity to go together for just a certain part. Don't confuse stubbornness or possession. Any rare moment that is still charming, we should pay attention and give more than thinking that others must comply with our style. Thus, you will not be misunderstood, respect, and help others, leading to a positive, joyful life, not making yourself and others suffer. Debt, whether short-lived or long-term, has its own value. It teaches us about human connection, about trust and expectations. We need to learn to appreciate those who have passed through our lives, whether they have brought happiness or pain, because they all contribute to who we are today. Hundreds of millions of raindrops fell, none of them in the wrong place. Everyone we've ever met, not a random person. It may be short or long, there are people who will stay with us to continue, but there are also people who leave quickly. But in the end, a good movie is a movie that leaves us with many regrets. The meetings in our lives are the same. Has anyone ever left that makes you feel regretful? Every meeting and separation has its reasons. There may be regrets, but still, thanks and luck for meeting each other as long as the scenery around you is only sad. This life is boring. In the dark room, absent-mindedly in the corner of the room, quietly watching the clock tick, I felt lost in my own life. These are the nights when the pillows are wet until the tears are dry. Day after day just passes so tastelessly. But ironically, we are lucky enough to meet each other, but not lucky enough to move on together. People live in this world because it's light-hearted, it's fun. Because it looks bland, it makes you happy. In the midst of heaven and earth, we are all just passers-by. There are many people in life and things we cannot control. For example, time has passed. For example, people have left. Everything depends on fate. Deep fate reunites, bland fate leaves. In human life, you can take it lightly and see how light it is. The more suffering will leave you. Everyone is afraid that they may not be clear and alert at times, hoping that their minds will be as bright as a mirror. In fact, why does human life need to be so alert? 4. Each person's choice. Perhaps in our lives we have contemplated many situations of love. No one wants, but by accident or circumstances, love becomes a pain. In love, it seems that everywhere is destined by God. Fate comes, fate stays, or fate goes. It seems to be all arranged by fate. In life, there are conditions that when they first start are like planks have built boats. Everything happens quickly but firmly, as if everything was predetermined. Just a look, a smile, or a short meeting is enough for two people to know that they belong together, that this is a deep connection without needing to doubt or wonder. On the contrary, there are also fates that, no matter how long they last, from the beginning it was predetermined that they would eventually have to leave each other. No matter how much time we go through, no matter how hard we try, we still cannot change that fate. These relationships, while bringing beautiful memories, also leave the sadness of not being able to have a good ending. Not all love leads to happiness or fulfillment. Loving someone doesn't mean you have to have that person. Love is sometimes just a silent watch, an acceptance that the person may not belong to you, but the feelings for them remain unchanged. However, if you have been lucky enough to have someone you love, the most important thing is to love them wholeheartedly. It's easy to say love, but loving, caring, and cultivating that love is the real hardship. Love is not just sweet words, but patience, understanding, and daily sacrifice. That journey is challenging, but it is also what makes love more meaningful. Therefore, whether it is a quick fate or a difficult fate, the core thing is that you can live your life to the fullest with that love. Action always requires effort and perseverance, but it is from there that love truly flourishes and endures. Finally, between debt and pain, we always have the right to choose how to look at and face it. If you consider it all just pain, life will become gloomy and heavy. But if we see everything as a debt, whether good or bad, then each experience brings its own values, helping us grow and improve ourselves. In conclusion, fate or pain are both indispensable parts of life. We cannot avoid relationships, nor can we avoid pain, but what matters is how we learn, grow, and love ourselves more with each step of our lives. In love, choice is ours. In love, sincerity does not always bring happiness. There are times when it is the truth that hurts others. Then, perhaps lying would be a better choice. If lies create trauma, perhaps silence is the way to avoid more hurt. But if silence hurts you again, sometimes leaving is the only solution. And if love is all about pain, perhaps it's better not to step into it. However, love is not as simple as what we theorize. In reality, many situations are more complicated than we expected. Lying doesn't always save feelings. Silence doesn't always help avoid hurt. And leaving is sometimes not the path to liberation we hope for. Love has strange aspects, where there is no absolute right or wrong, and each person has to face it themselves, feel it for themselves, and make the most suitable choice for themselves. In the end, no matter the circumstances, we are still the ones who have the right to choose. Choose to stay or leave. Choose to be sincere or lie. Choose to face or avoid. Those choices have no single answer because love is inherently complex and unpredictable, and only when we go through each experience do we truly understand what is right for us. The most important thing is to listen to your own emotions and not let fear or prejudice control your heart. If loss makes us suffer, are we afraid to pay the price for what has passed? When the things we cherish gradually disappear, pain often weighs heavily on the soul. We can ask ourselves, am I afraid of paying the price for the past? Do old memories, mistakes, and choices become a burden to the present? Sometimes, loss is not just an immediate pain, but an obsession with facing the past. We fear that what we have done, experienced, will continue to cling and demand a high price. If being intoxicated makes us suffer, will we choose the end? Love, passion, or intense passionate emotions can both bring happiness and contain suffering. When emotions become a burden, making our hearts tired and miserable, the big question is, are we brave enough to end it? Leave behind the emotions that once moved our hearts. The decision to give up is never easy because the end also means facing the void that we must fill afterward. If chasing makes us tired, do we choose to be silent? Pursuing a dream, a relationship, or whatever we desire requires perseverance and energy. But there are times when that pursuit makes us exhausted, feel disoriented, and skeptical about its value. Then, is silence a choice? Silence is not a complete renunciation, but a moment when we pause to listen to ourselves, to reconsider the past journey, and reflect on the next step. Ultimately, in life, no answer is certain. Each choice leads to different turns, and only when faced with ourselves do we know what is truly right for our hearts. If separation is melancholy, who will we confide that feeling in? There are many things that we will not see clearly until later. There are many things right when it happens that we don't feel pain, but we can't find it on the path we're on. Conflicts in love. There are loves so deep and passionate that every moment together is full of emotions, but we don't know how to express them perfectly. Every gesture and word never seems enough to express everything the heart wants to convey. The beauty of that love does not lie in perfection, but in sincerity. But the inability to express it sometimes creates an invisible distance between two hearts. Then there are loves that we know we won't be able to move on. Reason tells us that this is a dead end, that every effort only brings torment and pain. However, it is impossible to have the heart to leave. Every time we think about giving up, we feel regretful, seeing that our hearts still want to hold on to sweet moments, even though we know they are just fragments of an ended story. There are loves that, from the very beginning, we knew that it would bring suffering. But ironically, we cannot avoid that intense emotion. Every day that passes is an internal battle between facing the pain or trying to hide it. That suffering is like a smoldering fire, burning in our hearts, spreading more and more. But we still do not have the courage to extinguish it. Even though we know that the more we stay, the greater the pain, we still persist and cannot leave. Perhaps because the heart is attached to the emotions that love brings, beautiful moments and unforgettable memories. Every moment together, no matter how short, makes us sink deeper into that feeling, even more unable to leave, even though we know that the road ahead is full of tears. Even though we know that facing pain is difficult, avoiding it may be even more difficult. The heart cannot pretend not to feel anything because love, despite suffering, is still an indispensable part of life. Perhaps sometimes we have to accept pain to better understand the value of love and also to learn to love ourselves. And there is love that we know in advance has no future. All hope is like a distant dream, but the heart cannot turn back. Even though we know we will get nowhere, we continue to immerse ourselves, still choose to love and live in the short moments of the present. We accept to follow a path without a destination, because the heart has no other choice. Love is always full of contradictions and paradoxes. These are emotions that reason cannot control, choices that the heart decides for itself. And no matter how many difficulties and sufferings there are, love is always an indispensable part of every person's journey. One life after another, inheriting each other. People meet each other because of the word fate, live and love each other because of the word debt. In love, if there is no love, then next to you, there are still friends who are always ready to listen and share with you. Without soulmates, family is always a place you can rely on. And if unfortunately you don't have a family, then your own life is the most precious thing. Your life, your existence, is the priceless gift that nothing can replace. Fate comes and goes. Every relationship in life leaves behind a little something beautiful and sometimes even regrets. But after all, everything that comes and goes has its reasons. The things that truly belong to you will never be lost, and the things that do not belong to you, no matter how hard you try to hold on, will eventually leave. The most important thing is that you learn to let go, accept things that come and go, and live with peace of mind. In each person's life, no one can predict when fate will come or when fate will go. But believe that every appearance and departure has its own meaning, and your life will always have irreplaceable values, regardless of whether fate is compatible or dissolved.